It's pretty much every homeowner's biggest fear, right? Water damage. But what if I told you that understanding the enemy is the key to getting the upper hand? So today, we're going to break down the science and the professional playbook for dealing with water, turning what feels like a disaster into a process you can actually manage. Let's dive in.
All right, picture this. You walk into your kitchen, and bam, there it is, a puddle spreading across the floor. Your first instinct, of course, is to grab a mop. But here's the thing. The real problem isn't the water you can see, not even close. It's about what's happening behind the scenes, inside your walls, and the clock is already ticking.
Yeah, that ticking clock? It's a 48-hour countdown. Because in just 2 days, that seemingly clean water leak can turn into a full-blown breeding ground for mold inside your walls. The real enemy isn't the puddle. It's the moisture that gets trapped where you can't see it.
So how does this even happen? To really get a handle on the danger, you have to trace it back to the source. And it's probably not what you're thinking. It's rarely that big, dramatic, movie-style burst pipe. Nope, it's usually the slow, silent leaks that do the absolute most damage over time.
And these hidden threats, they can be super specific to where you live and how old your house is. Like, if you're in an area with a lot of clay soil, that ground can act like a giant sponge, just pushing moisture right up through your foundation. Or, hey, maybe you live in a house built in the 60s or 70s. Those old cast iron pipes, they can get these tiny little cracks inside the walls, leaking for months, and you'd have no idea. Even your air conditioner can cause a secret flood in the attic if a simple little drain line gets clogged up. Okay, so a pro shows up, they find the water, what's the very first thing they do? Well, they don't just see water, they decode it. And let me tell you, this isn't just some fancy industry term. Classifying the type of water is probably the most critical step. It dictates the entire game plan for safety and cleanup.
So who's making up these rules anyway? It's this organization called the IICRC. Basically, you can think of them as the global scientific authority for the whole restoration industry. Their guidelines make sure the whole process is based on proven science, not just somebody's best guess. And that science-backed approach, that's what separates a true professional from, just some guy with a wet dry vac.
So the system they use breaks down into 3 pretty simple categories. First, you've got Category 1. That's clean water straight from a supply line or from rain. Then there's Category 2, or gray water. Think of a washing machine overflowing. It's kind of gross, but it's not a biohazard. But then you get to Category 3, black water. We're talking sewage, floodwater, stuff that's seriously contaminated and requires full-on hazmat protocols. And getting this wrong, that's not just a simple mistake, it's a massive health risk. All right, so the source is found, the water's been classified. Now what? This is where the pros really shine, turning total chaos into a clear, methodical process. They don't panic, they have a playbook, and it breaks the entire job down into 3 distinct, manageable steps. And the logic here is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. First, they get all that standing water out, fast, to stop the damage in its tracks. Second, they bring in the heavy-duty gear to dry out all that moisture we talked about, the stuff hiding in the walls. And only then, when everything is scientifically proven to be bone dry, does Step 3 begin, rebuilding everything to look like it never, ever happened. So that first step, it's all about speed and pure power. And look, we are not talking about mops and buckets here. The pros roll up with these massive, truck-mounted extractors that can literally suck hundreds of gallons of water out of your home every single hour. The goal is to just stop the bleeding and prevent that water from soaking into even more of your house. Okay, Step 2. This is where the science really kicks into high gear. This is the big fight against that invisible enemy, the trapped moisture. They set up these enormous commercial dehumidifiers and high-velocity air movers, and it basically creates this powerful vortex of dry air that just pulls water out of drywall, wood, and floors. And technicians are there every single day, monitoring the progress with special scientific meters, making sure the structure gets back to its normal, pre-damaged dry state. And finally, once everything is verifiably, scientifically dry, the rebuilding can start. This is the part where your house actually starts looking like a home again. We're talking new drywall, new baseboards, new flooring, a fresh coat of paint. The whole goal is to make it look like the damage never even occurred. So how do the pros actually pull all this off? I mean, how do they follow this playbook so perfectly? Well, it really all comes down to their toolkit. It's packed with amazing technology that lets them see what you can't. This is the gear that makes the invisible visible. Let's just quickly break down the essentials. You've got moisture meters, which basically answer the question, okay, but how wet is this really? Then you have the commercial dehumidifiers and air movers, which are the heavy lifters that do the actual drying. But the real game changer, the piece of tech that honestly feels like something out of a sci-fi movie, is the thermal imaging camera.
I mean, this quote really says it all. These cameras literally see temperature differences, which means a technician can spot a cold, damp pocket of insulation hiding behind a wall that looks perfectly fine to the naked eye. It's basically like having X-ray vision for water, and it is an absolute game changer in this business.
Okay, so the pros have their playbook, they've got their cool, high-tech tools. But what about you? Where do you fit in? Well, your role is actually critical. Seriously, being an informed homeowner is like your superpower in this situation. It helps you navigate your insurance, ask the right questions, and just generally stay in control.
And the very first thing you need to understand are two words you're going to hear a lot: mitigation and restoration. Think of mitigation as the emergency response. It's like stopping the bleeding. It's all about extracting water and drying things out to prevent more damage. Restoration, on the other hand, is the actual rebuild. The new drywall, the new floors, that happens after everything is dry. Knowing the difference between these two is so important, especially when you start talking to your insurance company. So when you have to make that call to a professional, this is the level of service you should absolutely expect. No excuses. An immediate 24/7 response? That's non-negotiable, right? Remember that 48-hour mold clock? You should get super detailed documentation for your insurance claim, a single person to talk to, your project manager, and daily updates so you're never left wondering what's going on.
And always remember this: you are the final inspector. A pro's job isn't done just because the last coat of paint is dry. No way. It's finished when you've done a final walkthrough with the project manager and you've signed off saying you are 100% happy with every single detail.
So how can you stay one step ahead of all this? Well, you know what they say. The best defense is a good offense. So you've got to be on the lookout for these key warning signs. That weird, musty smell in the basement that you can't quite place? That is a massive red flag for hidden moisture. And things like paint that's bubbling or peeling, floors that are starting to warp, or even a sudden crazy spike in your water bill, that's your house trying to tell you something's wrong.
So, there you have it. We've decoded the hidden dangers, we've looked at the science, and we've walked through the professional playbook. The whole process shouldn't feel like such a mystery anymore. The only real question left is, are you listening to what your own home might be trying to tell you? Because at the end of the day, knowing what to look for, that's the first and honestly the most powerful step you can take to stop a disaster before it even starts.